All right, so we all think we know the dinosaur story, right? Giant lizards, huge asteroid, boom, game over. But what if that's not the whole picture? Not even close. Today, we're going to dive into a totally different take on their history, one that comes from some pretty fascinating esoteric and metaphysical sources. We're talking cosmic designers, planetary guardians, and a grand, deliberate plan. So let's get into it, starting with a puzzle that you've probably wondered about yourself. Okay, so our investigation, it doesn't start way out in the cosmos. Nope, it starts right here, on Earth, with a body part. A mystery that has had paleontologists scratching their heads for more than 100 years. It's a clue, hidden in plain sight, on the most famous, most powerful predator to ever walk the planet.
I mean, it almost sounds like the start of a bad joke, but it's a real scientific puzzle. Why did the T-Rex, this 40-foot, 9-ton monster, the tyrant lizard king, have these tiny little arms, like human-sized arms? They were so short they couldn't even reach its mouth. They seem way too weak for fighting or for lifting anything heavy. So what in the world were they for?
So the standard explanation you'll hear from science is that they were just vestigial, an evolutionary leftover that didn't have much use anymore. But the sources we're looking at today, they ask a much wilder question. What if those tiny arms weren't a mistake at all? What if they were put there on purpose? A deliberate limitation, part of some much, much bigger design. And that question, right there, is our way into this whole cosmic story.
All right, to even start to get our heads around this grander design, we've got to zoom out, and I mean way out. We're shifting gears from paleontology to cosmology because we need to talk about the main players in this story, according to these sources, a group you could call cosmic designers, or, as they're often named, the life carriers.
So the big idea here is something called cosmic seeding. The theory goes like this. Life on Earth, evolution itself, it wasn't just a random accident. Instead, super advanced, non-human intelligences deliberately planted the seeds of life here. They engineered it, they guided it. And in that version of the story, dinosaurs weren't just an accident of nature, they were an installation.
Yeah, and check out this quote from the source material. It just nails this shift in thinking. It says, dinosaurs weren't accidents, but laboratory art forms. How cool is that? So instead of being a product of random evolution, they were designed, crafted, with a very specific job to do, helping a baby Earth grow up.
And listen, this isn't just some one-off idea from a single book. Not at all. This theme of life being engineered, it pops up again and again across a whole bunch of different, seemingly unrelated traditions. You see it in the Urantia book. You see it in the work of mystics like Manly P. Hall, Drinvalo Melchizedek. The list goes on. It's like this recurring idea, a pattern, hidden in this stream of esoteric thought.
Okay, so that leads us to the million-dollar question, right? If they were designed, what was their job? What was their purpose? Well, according to this story, they were way more than just giant animals. They were basically the guardians of a young, chaotic Earth.
So what was their cosmic job description? Well, these sources say they were here to basically be walking, breathing embodiments of raw primal force. Think about it. Their massive weight, their constant movement. They were literally sculpting the planet, carving out valleys, totally reshaping ecosystems. They were anchoring the planet in what's called gross density, basically getting the physical ground, Gaia, ready for the next stage of life, the more sensitive creatures, like mammals.
But their job wasn't just about Earth's landscape. Get this, there's another amazing idea here. They were also a biological keep-out sign for the rest of the universe. Just imagine for a second. You're part of some advanced alien race, you're scouting for planets to colonize. You scan Earth and what do you see? A world crawling with enormous, unpredictable, super-aggressive monsters. Yeah, you'd probably just put a big nope on your star chart and keep on going, right?
And man, were they good at their job. They were Earth's guardians for 140 million years. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. 140 million years. To put that in perspective, we, modern humans, have been around for, 300,000 years? Their reign was almost 500 times longer than all of human history. That huge, almost unimaginable amount of time basically put the planet under a protective quarantine. It let Earth develop on its own, without any outside meddling, so it could mature at its own pace.
So if they were so good at their job, why'd they just disappear? We all know the official story, right? The big asteroid, catastrophe. But in this version of history,
Their extinction wasn't some random disaster. Nope, it was the end of their contract. Their mission was over, and their exit was just as planned out as their entrance.
These sources lay it out as a clear, three-step process. Step 1, mission accomplished. Their job of getting the planet ready was finished. Step 2, the Earth's whole vibe, its vibrational frequency, started to change, started to rise, and it just wasn't a good match for their dense, physical bodies anymore. And Step 3, the stage was cleared. It's like taking down the set after the first act of a play is over to make way for the next act, which was the age of mammals, and eventually us.
Okay, so where's the proof for a story this big, this mythic? Well, according to these traditions, the clues have been here the whole time. They're hidden in the exact same things about dinosaurs that have always made us scratch our heads.
And this brings us full circle, right back to where we started, those tiny T-Rex arms. See, from this point of view, that weird little feature isn't a flaw. It's a clue, a telltale sign. You could even call it a genetic signature left by the creators. It was a built-in limiter, a control mechanism. It made them powerful enough to be guardians, but not so adaptable that they could become builders or tool users who might get in the way of the next phase of life.
And what's so wild is how neatly all these different pieces seem to fit together. When you look across all these different esoteric traditions, the story is surprisingly consistent. You've got the engineered origin, the purpose as planetary guardians, the planned extinction, and this idea of design quirks being functional limits, and the end game was always the same: to prepare the world for mammals and eventually for us. It all weaves together into one big unified story.
So, let's wrap this up. What are the big takeaways here? What should you remember from this whole alternative history? First, dinosaurs weren't an accident. They were engineered cosmic sentinels. Second, their whole purpose was to get Earth ready for conscious life, for us. Third, their extinction wasn't a tragedy. It was a deliberate clearing of the stage. And finally, the clues to this whole story might just be hidden in the exact things that science still can't quite explain.
Look, whether you see this as a totally compelling alternative to the mainstream story or just a really fascinating piece of modern myth, it definitely makes you look at our planet's past in a new way, right? And it leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. If a story as huge as the 140 million year reign of the dinosaurs could have been a deliberate design, what else in our history might be?